My name is James. I babysit on the weekends to make some extra cash. Anyways, I was watching a 5-year-old and her name was Bella. This was my first time watching Bella. Her parents were out of town and had a beautiful home. The house had 3 stories and was almost like a little mansion. As the night went on, I made me and Bella some dinner. While we were eating, she said something that didn't sit right. I asked Bella what she liked to do for fun. Being it was my first time meeting her, and she seemed like a nice girl. Bella said, "I like playing with the man who visits me at night." That answer sent shivers down my spine. Do your parents know about the man? I didn't actually believe her. Just never know. Bella just laughed and quickly finished her food before spiriting upstairs and slamming her door shut. Kids have the weirdest imaginations, I told myself. I cleaned the dishes and went into the guest room, which was right below Bella's room on the 2nd floor. I remember it was hard for me to sleep that night. I couldn't shake off what Bella told me at dinner. I kept looking out of the window that was beside the bed. I eventually drifted to sleep. I was woken by laughter above me. I checked the time on my phone to see it was 11 p.m. You have to be kidding me. I sighed. I got out of bed and was about to grab my headphones before Bella's laughter was even louder than before. I was about to say something, but suddenly I heard the laugh of a grown man coming from upstairs. I ripped open the door to the room and sprinted upstairs. I swung open Bella's door to find nobody. I grabbed her, left the house, and called the police. I know what I heard that night. The cops didn't find anything, and I didn't want to go back in the house. I called the parents and asked them if it was okay for me to go to a nearby hotel. The parents allowed it, being to how spooked I obviously was. The next day I was fired on the spot. No matter how much I tried to explain, they did not believe me and were angry that I scared Bella. Let this be a lesson to you all who have children. If they have an imaginary friend, it might not be imaginary. I know what I heard that night. Imaginary friends aren't always in the physical world, but a much complex world that we, most adults, cannot see. Remember to keep an ear out when a kid says they have an imaginary friend. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd been babysitting for the Johnsons for a few months when they asked me to stay late one Friday night. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening. The kids were already in bed, and all I had to do was keep an eye on the monitor while they slept. As the night went on, the house grew quiet. I distracted myself by watching TV and occasionally checking the monitor, but I had an uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. Around 11 p.m., I heard a faint thud coming from the back of the house. I dismissed it as a tree branch or some other harmless noise, but the feeling of unease only grew. Then, the monitor crackled to life, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. A shadow figure was creeping through the living room, moving with purpose and stealth. My heart raced as I realized someone had broken into the house. I didn't know what to do. My first instinct was to call the police, but I couldn't risk making any noise that might alert the intruder. I had to find a way to protect the children and myself. I quietly opened the door to the kids' room and slipped inside. They were still fast asleep, unaware of the danger lurking just beyond their door. I had to keep them safe. I locked the door and huddled with them into the corner, trying to think of a plan. The sound of footsteps echoed through the house, growing closer and closer. I could hear the intruder moving room to room, searching for something or someone. My heart pounded in my chest, and I struggled to keep my breathing steady. Suddenly, the doorknob to the kids' room rattled, and I held my breath, praying the lock would hold. The intruder stopped, and I could hear the intruder moving away. I frantically texted the parents, letting them know what was happening and urging them to call the police. I felt a surge of relief when they replied that they had already called the cops, but minutes felt like hours as we waited for help to arrive. The sound of sirens in the distance filled me with hope, but the intruder came back to the kids' room again. They started pounding on the door, demanding to be let in. I held the children close. The pounding grew more and more frantic, and I knew the intruder was getting desperate. But just as I feared the worst, the sound of the front door crashing open echoed through the house, followed by the shouts of police officers. The intruder fled, and the police quickly secured the house. The parents arrived home soon after. We were all shaken but unharmed. In the days that followed, the police assured us that they were doing everything they could to find the person. That night had changed me. The lesson I took from that night was a chilling one. Sometimes the true horror isn't the things we can see, but in the things that lurk just beyond our perception, waiting to strike when we least expect it. It's a reminder that danger can be closer than we think. So, to all those who hear my story, I urge you to remember that the true terror may not always come from monsters or ghosts, but from the unknown and the things that linger in the shadows. Be aware, and never assume that you are truly safe, for the darkness may hold secrets we can never truly comprehend. This was my first time babysitting. I posted online and was looking for anyone who was interested. A woman had messaged me and wanted me to watch her 2 kids. I was excited since it was my first time and I was going to make some extra money. Around 9 p.m., I arrived at the house. The parents were nice and the kids were well-mannered and behaved. The girl and boy were twins and 13 years old. The parents left soon after. At this time, I was sitting downstairs in the living room. I noticed the daughter, Jem, on her phone and laughing. Jem eventually walked over to me and asked if her friend could come over. It was Friday, so I had no issue with it. I texted the mom and they were okay with it as well. Now it was 10:30 p.m. Was the friend staying the night? I remember thinking to myself. Joey, the boy, was walking downstairs. He went into the kitchen and was pouring him something to drink. Before I could try to talk to him, there was a knock at the door. I felt a sense of unease. I got up and walked towards the door and looked through the peephole. My heart dropped as I was looking at a tall figure wearing all black standing on the other side of the door. "You have the wrong house!" I yelled through the door. I could see the man take a few steps back and then press his eye almost directly onto the peephole. "It's me, Isabella." The man laughed. It was obvious that the man had tricked Jem somehow. The man knocked and knocked, eventually turning into banging. I turned off all of the lights and ran upstairs, after grabbing Joey. I could hear the door burst open. Jem had a room door open, so I practically threw Joey inside and quickly locked the door behind me. I told them to hide in the closet. I called the police and explained the situation. The cops were 5 minutes away. After hanging up the phone, it was too quiet. Suddenly, all I could hear was the man's heavy breathing on the other side of Jem's door. He turned on the hall lights. Now I could see his shadow on the other side from underneath the door. He lightly rubbed something on the door. It sounded just like scratching. We heard the police come in the house and come upstairs. "Drop the knife!" an officer yelled. We heard the police arresting the man and even getting him to the ground. I decided to look out the door once I knew the man had been detained. I opened the door and looked at the ground to see a middle-aged man looking directly at me and smiling with a rather large mouth. The cops got him out of the house and sent him to jail. They shared disturbing information about the man. He had just gotten out for robbery and other crimes I won't share. The most disturbing thing about it was the cops telling me that when they came upstairs, the man was standing in front of Jem's door with a smile on his face while holding a knife. It gives me chills to this day even thinking about it. We found out a few days later that Jem had been messaging the man for weeks. She believed it was a girl named Isabella who lived in the area and wanted to hang out sometimes. I still think about that day, even today. Now that I have kids of my own, I always make sure to go through their phones and keep an eye on their social media. If you are a person who is lucky to have a kid, make sure to teach them the dangers of the internet. Stay safe out there. As the rain pelted against the windows, casting eerie shadows throughout the dimly lit house, I found myself tasked with babysitting my younger brother, Sam. It was one of those dreary, rainy afternoons that seemed to stretch on forever, the kind that makes you want to curl up under a blanket and never leave. Sam, being the energetic 7-year-old that he was growing restless. "I'm bored, Alex," he whined, tugging at my sleeve. "Can we play something?" I sighed, racking my brain for something to occupy his time. Then it hit me. "How about a game of hide and seek?" I suggested, hoping it would keep him entertained for a while. His eyes lit up at the idea. "Yeah, that sounds fun." He laughed. So, we began our game. The sound of rain drumming against the roof provided the perfect background as I counted down from 10, while Sam scampered off to find his hiding spot. "Ready or not, here I come!" I yelled out. I crept around, trying to find where he could be hiding. Suddenly, I heard a voice from behind me. "Over here, Alex." I heard my brother's voice coming from behind the closed basement door. I walked over and opened the door to see absolutely nothing. Darkness was the only thing at the bottom of the steps. I called out his name to get no response. I was about to walk down a little and turn on the lights, but Sam came from behind me and jumped around. "Why are you looking down there? I would never go in the basement." He laughed. My heart dropped. I took one more look at the basement, trying to look through the darkness. I was too terrified to even move and turn on the light. I built the courage to walk down a few steps and reached out to turn on the light. Before I could, me and Sam could hear running footsteps coming at us. No one came into view, but the footsteps were still coming. I quickly ran and slammed the basement door shut. Me and Sam haven't told our parents to this day. I've never really believed in ghosts or anything, but this event certainly changed my mind. Whatever you do, don't go towards the voice that calls your name when you're all alone at home. They're always watching and listening.